Welcome to the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary here in Rowley. I'm Bill Getty, the director of the Joplin Flats Education Center in Newburyport and the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary here in Rowley. Now, to get to our beautiful sanctuary, it's 250 acres, jointly owned and operated by the Massachusetts Audubon Society and the Essex County Greenbelt. And from Rowley Center, you would head up north on Route 1A, and as you're driving along, you'll go over the bridge that goes over the commuter rail. And just about a few tenths of a mile past that on your right hand side will be Stackyard Road. Stackyard Road is a dirt road. You go in about a tenth of a mile and bear left. There'll be a sign for Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary. That's Patmos Road. And you'll come down here another tenth or 2/10 of a mile to our parking lot. And that's the start of our trail system. This is the 21st of August, and in about a month or 6 weeks, we'll have a kiosk here that will have a trail map and trail brochures that you can take and information about our sanctuary. And this beautiful property, we're standing at the edge of the salt marsh, but to get here, we've walked through some oak forest. And this sanctuary, 250 acres, is co-owned and operated by the Massachusetts Audubon Society and the Essex County Greenbelt. We've pooled our resources and our land together and have developed a trail system here in Rowley called Rough Meadows. And again, as I was saying, this is a mixed habitat. We have grasslands a little bit further to the west here. We have the oak forest and hickory forest, a lot of sassafras. And here we've come out into the salt marsh, and we use this area for school programs. So we bring children out here to explore the salt marsh, look at the various different plants and animals, to explore the mud flats and the tide pools that are right here. So this is a wonderful place to walk. We encourage all of the citizens of Rowley and neighboring communities to come out and visit us. I think, as a lot of your viewers may be aware, the town of Rowley contributed $250,000 from their Community Preservation Act funds to help us procure this land, and it's a pretty good deal for their $250,000. We have over 250 acres of land that's open and welcoming to anybody from the area. We have trail maps to show people where to walk, a beautiful system of trails, and we certainly invite everybody to come on out and enjoy the property that they helped preserve. Out here in the salt marsh, we have a large number of different plants, and some are really exciting. This is, a lot of folks call this pickleweed or glasswort. As you can see, they're semi-translucent, and I understand some of the old-timers here in the Rowley area used to use this in salads in the place of croutons. When we're talking to children, we often think of this as being sort of like Fruit Loops, where you have these bright colors, and as we go later into the summer and into the fall, this glasswort takes on this beautiful appearance. Back in the salt pans, these tiny little pools of salt water, where the animals and plants have to be very tolerant of changes in salinity. This whole pool, on a very dry season, when it's very hot, will completely dry up, and then when it rains, it fills back up. So these plants and animals have to be able to tolerate very significant changes in salinity and basically dry conditions where they can burrow down into the mud to stay moist. This trail that's coming down here, it used to be called Far Division Road. Well, it's still called Far Division Road. It's a private way, and it's been renamed the Professor Chandler's Long Walk. Professor Chandler is a gentleman who conceived the idea of protecting this land. And when we were going to name this trail in particular, we asked the family, what would you like to have this trail named? And they say, well, that's where Professor Chandler always took his long walks. If he wanted a long walk, he would come this way. If he wanted a short walk, he'd go someplace else. So we named this Professor Chandler's Long Walk. One thing that folks need to be aware of, and there's signage on the trail that warns folks that at high tide, this area is covered by water. So we just ask people, if you're walking out here along Professor Chandler's Long Walk, to be aware of the tide. Of course, as you can see, you could walk back through the water, but if you don't want to get wet, you want to come here on sort of the half tide with the tide going out, and then be aware on your passage back. There's a lot of different plants. There's cordgrass here right along where you get frequent flows of the high tide. Marsh elder, this plant that always is marking the top edges of the just slightly higher parts of the salt marsh. And you can see along the creek here, just along the edge of the salt marsh, it basically marks the high tide line. In the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary, beside all this beautiful salt meadow here that you have with the salt marsh hay, the low grass out here, and the cord grass, this really tall grass here, that usually is growing along the taller grass. The cord grass usually grows along the edge of these small tidal creeks. And there are a lot of them on the property. Here is one. This is a natural creek. This was not dug. And the area, the water here is usually at low tide, like it is right now, just about a foot or foot and a half deep. Some places it's deeper than that. But this is a wonderful place for small fish that come in. They are actually, a lot of them are forced up into these creeks by the larger fish that are out in the main rivers. So the small fish come up into these streams to find protection underneath this grass and in dark areas, so that they can, well, avoid being eaten by larger fish. Well, what of course that does is it makes them relatively easy prey for things like great blue herons, great egrets, snowy egrets, birds that focus on eating aquatic and marine organisms like frogs, sometimes snakes, but lots of different fishes. These are very beautiful areas. You can see, if you scan across the marsh, you can pretty well tell where the creeks are, because you'll have this large Spartina alterniflora, this cord grass. Here you can see the seeds that are coming out. And you can, just by looking across the marsh, you can see where that higher grass is, and you can be quite certain that there's a stream there, or a large salt pan, a large pool of water in the middle of the marsh here. Of course, the town of Raleigh has a very rich history here with salt marsh haying. It was a very important industry, and some of our farmers, of course, continue to do salt marsh haying. But to me, this is one of the most beautiful areas. Salt marshes are incredibly productive areas. If you like to eat fish, then you like salt marshes, because many of the very small fishes, the ones that we eat, spend at least part of their life cycles here in the salt marsh. Just a beautiful place to walk, but again, be cautious if you're walking out in the salt marsh to be watching for creeks like this, because you can step in a hole or step into a creek. But if you're cautious and watch where this grass is, you can be quite careful. And this is taking this about the 21st of August. And as the year goes on into September and early October, the marsh becomes incredibly beautiful. It turns these beautiful amber and golden colors. It's one of the most exciting places I can think of during the fall. Okay, we've come into the forested area here, primarily oak trees, hickory trees. This happens to be sassafras. And again, we're still on Professor Chandler's Long Walk, this beautiful trail that, if you look on a map, again, will say it's Far Division Road. But what's interesting about sassafras, notice the leaves here. Here's one that's three-lobed. Here's 1, 2, 3-lobed. And then it has this leaf, it's one-lobed. And in between, this one that looks like a mitten, okay, just looks like that, it just has the 2 lobes. And again, this is a type of plant that kids seem to really enjoy, seeing that there's such a difference here in one tree, 3 different leaf types, all on the same branch. So here it is, the 3-lobed, the 2-lobed, and the single-lobed on sassafras. This is a fern that's quite common here. It comes up on a stalk and then it's sort of palmate at the top. This is bracken fern, and we have a lot of this here on the sanctuary. A relatively common fern here in New England. On the sanctuary here, we have a lot of these trees that look very peculiar. Some have 2 trunks, some have 3. This one used to have 4. There used to be a 4th one over here. But I understand that what this indicates is that the folks here who owned this property in Raleigh, this was a woodlot. And what they would do is come in and they would find a tree, an oak tree, this happens to be an oak tree, and they'd cut it off for timber, for firewood or building, whatever, and then the tree would then sprout again from the trunk, and that's what we're seeing. So the original tree was down here, it was cut off, and then it sprouted again again, and so we have this tree, and very often there's a little pool in the middle here, just as this one has, and sometimes we find frog eggs in there. It's a breeding place for things like mosquito. You can actually see there's wrigglers in there, the larvae of mosquitoes. So that we're not all that big fans of mosquitoes, but of course the mosquitoes are the food source for a number of small animals, and of course birds eat them. Okay, just walking along here, I found this feather. It's comes from one of our fairly common birds here. This is a blue jay, and this is a feather probably from the tail. Because you could see it's asynchronous. There's more feather on this side of the central rib than there is that. If it were a body feather, it would be equal distant on either side. Okay, we've walked out the Professor Chandler's Long Walk, as you can see, indicating by the sign here, and this is a trail that is a sassafras trail. From our parking lot, we have come almost due east out towards Plum Island, or out towards Plum Island Sound. So we named this because, well, here's a sassafras tree right next to it. And this trail in particular had lots of these plants. They're all along we go in. So this is Professor Chandler's Long Walk, and we could now proceed down, take a look at Sassafras Trail. The Massachusetts Audubon Society took possession of this land last year. Essex County Greenbelt, our partner in this sanctuary, owned this land prior to that. But we worked together with our volunteers to build this trail. And what we were very cautious about is to minimize the number of plants that we would have to cut. We cut very, very few to make this trail. We don't have any bridges or anything of that nature, so it's a very easy walking. During the rainy season, you may have to you might get your feet wet a little bit, but it's a very easy walking. There are no major hills, no major rocks to step over. Very easy walking for a family. This is another fern that we have here on the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary. This is interrupted fern. And what is it? Oh, it's just calling. Was it a tufted titmouse? Peter, Peter, Peter? I don't know if it's going to call again. But anyway, this is interrupted fern, and this is the sterile fronds. They don't have spores, but they bear their spores here on these in the middle. So the frond of the fern is interrupted. You have the green, and then the brown that has the spores on it, and then you have the green again. So interrupted fern. I just want to point anybody who walks out here on the beautiful trail system, again, it's very well marked with trail marker signs. But another thing to keep in mind, we have these discs up on the trees, and blue indicates that you're moving away from the parking lot. So wherever you see this, you know you're getting further and further away from the parking lot. We also have yellow discs, which means you're on the way back towards the parking lot. So you should be able to feel very secure you're not going to get lost out here. Okay, we've come down further on Professor Chandler's Long Walk, and here's another trail. This is Hickory Trail. Again, so many of the trees that in this area are hickories, so we named it that way. Just like the Sassafras Trail, it was a loop trail that comes off Professor Chandler's Long Walk and then joins it again. Hickory Trail is exactly the same way. So if you want to come down Professor Chandler's Long Walk and go all the way to the end, you can do that, or you can take these little loop trails and know that you'll come right back out to the main trail. When we were laying out the trail, again, we purposely cut as few almost no trees at all when we're making the trail, but we also made the trail go to where there were interesting features. And we thought for our school groups and for families, this would be a very interesting place to come. This is a tree that has fallen over due to the wind. What impressed us about this so much is, notice how shallow the root system is. I'm standing down in the hole for its roots, and it's basically maximum 2 feet deep here. The roots, of course, are spread out way to the side, but it's amazing to have a tree that must have been 50 or 60 feet high and have just this very small amount of roots that's holding the whole thing up. So we wanted to bring people over here to be able to see this, how this tree is very, very shallow roots. Of course, if it goes down too deep, straight down, it would get into salt water. So the roots are really quite near the surface. Okay, folks, we've taken a walk all the way out now, Far Division Road, the Professor Chandler's Long Walk. We took a detour around the loop for the Sassafras Trail and then the Hickory Trail, but we've come to the end of the property here, and we have this beautiful stone bench. When we were cleaning up the area, we put this beautiful granite bench in. This would be a wonderful place to come out with a family picnic. Just come walk out to the end of the trail. Again, you're going to watch the tide at that one tide crossing. This beautiful bench, and then if you look out here to the salt marsh, where we're looking here is we're looking towards the town. We're looking north and northeast. We're looking towards the town of Newbury. There's a large creek that you can see in the distance, and then this whole series of salt pans. These small, tidally impacted bodies of water that are full of small fishes. And usually when we come down here at this time of year, we're going to see great egrets, snowy egrets, shorebirds that are feeding on the mud. But this would be just a lovely place. And the mosquitoes at the moment are pretty bad right now. But if you were to come back here a little later on, or get a lot of insect repellent, but a spectacular place to come and have a picnic, say in late September and October, when the salt marsh has this golden color, golden colors, and then in the background you'll have the deciduous trees in their beautiful colors, and would certainly invite you to come out here to Rough Meadows and take a nice walk. We've again just a marker for you so you'll understand if you walk out here at the trail. I certainly hope you will, because this is such a beautiful place to walk. I want to point out, this is again Professor Chandler's Long Walk, this main trail that goes the length of the sanctuary, and this is Appy's Way. Appy Chandler is Professor Chandler's son, and we named a trail for him especially because he was instrumental in helping us preserve this land. His father had given us about 75 acres of land, and then Appy Chandler and his family were instrumental in helping us raise the money to purchase the rest of the land that became part of the Rough Meadows Wildlife Sanctuary. So Appy's Way leads this way to a trail that goes up on the small hill. It's the highest property that we have, but we're going to walk down that way because there's again another beautiful view of the salt marsh from the top of, well, we call it Appy's Hill. That's part of Appy's Trail. We've walked up Appy's Trail, and we call this Appy's Hill. It's just a little mountain. It's probably a glacial formation where material carried here and then deposited by the glacier. But there used to be a house up here. You can see some of the bricks and a little bit of material. The staff of Mass Audubon and Essex County Greenbelt did a tremendous amount of work to clean up all the debris that was here. Unfortunately, a lot of material was dumped. There used to be a large chimney here that we took down for safety reasons. From top of Appy's Hill, there's a scenic outlook just down the hill here. Another beautiful look at the salt marsh. On behalf of the Essex County Greenbelt and the Massachusetts Audubon Society, I really want to express our appreciation for the support that the citizens of the town of Rowley have given us. Again, a gift of $250,000 helped us purchase this land to be able to preserve this forever. And we encourage you to come and take a walk here. It's such a beautiful spot. And also do want to mention also the Rowley Conservation Commission and Brent Bazelak, the conservation agent. They did an amazing job working with us to help us lay out the trail system and clean up this area. So we very much appreciate all the support we've gotten from the community. Thank you.